happen to have a lot of walnut flooring, and it's still not quite long enough for an arrow. Same time, I'm going to do a footing. I got to set the rip fence to a little bit more than 3/8 of an inch, just a smidgen more. Just rip 3/8 inch shim for arrows because you don't want the thing breaking on you and going through your hand. So the straighter the grain, the better. Every time you rip one of these things out, you can just turn it over 90 degrees the rest of the way. Rip it again like that, and it's perfectly square. And you do the same thing with your piece of maple. Mark off 5 inches from one end on the footing. We're going to cut a slit right down the middle of that, and then go ahead and rip it all the way to that 5-inch mark. So, okay, once I got that cut off, I'm going to do the same thing I did on the maple. Make a 5-inch mark. Draw a line. 5-inch mark. I want to make it like a chisel end at the very end of this, because I got a split in the footing, and I'm going to make a chisel end out of that, and I'm just going to slide that chisel end into the footing. I want it to be perfectly centered that way. So I'm just going to find like the center line to the tip line, make a pencil mark at the center line, and then draw a straight line from the edge to that center line. Whenever you get a chisel like that, sort of dish it. Making it dish shape, it'll go in a lot easier. I'll explain. Let's put these little 1-inch clamps on there. And so when you slide the wood in there, you don't split the wood in there. Always best to do a dry run. Okay, if it won't go all the way in there without breaking something, then you might want to sand a little bit more. Remember, dishing it a little bit is always a good idea. I really like this Titebond 3. I think it's a little bit better than Titebond 2 because when this stuff dries, it gets hard. I'm gonna put a stream of glue down there. Right like that, let it run down. Before. I'm gonna stand it up right there just so that the glue doesn't run out the edge. Now I'm gonna put the Titebond here. Little background music, just to entertain you. Spread it with the finger. And now I'm gonna slide it in. Pry this open just a little bit with my fingers, as much as possible. Slide it in, twist. Make sure it's all lined up. Yeah. I'm going to wipe off some of the excess glue here. Make sure it's all lined up. Line it up both ways. Just a clamp on the middle. Then put the rest of the clamps on there. And put clamp number 3 on there. And let it sit overnight. Now I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. First I want to sand off these flares. I don't sand those down all the way because I don't want to accidentally get into the shaft. I'm going to plane off those corners around the flares using a little thumb plane. This is a dowel maker from Veritas Tools. There's the blade right there. It's adjustable. There's the other side of it. And I screwed it onto this 2x4 here. And I made myself an in-feed hole and out-feed holes. Okay, now I chuck a bolt into a drill and I take a little socket, like a 3/8 inch square, and stick that in there. Oh, but wait, you cut it bigger than 3/8 inch, so it won't fit. That's okay. Just rub all 4 sides a little bit on the belt sander, and it should fit. See, it fits now. Fit in there, and then look at that. Make sure the bolt fits the socket. Drilling it through. Just chuck it on the other end, make the drill go in the opposite direction, and pull it through. So let me show you how spin sands it. Hole through it. What I did is I took this block of wood, I drilled a hole straight through the middle of it, and then cut it in half with the bandsaw, and then put the hinge on it. And sandpaper in there. All I do is take a piece of sandpaper like that, fold it in half like that, sticking the arrow in there. Squeeze it in there. It's taking an arrow that I already like the length of. I'm going to use that to figure out how long I want this to be. And there's a couple of different ways to check the straightness. One is to roll it on the table. The other way is just to sight down it like that. It bends easier when it's hot. And there's a few different ways to heat it up. Heat gun, light a candle, heat it up, is to boil some water. So I found that the easiest way is to put a finish on them. I want a tiny little PCV pipe, fill it up to about right there with spar urethane. I took an inner tube, poked a hole in it with a leather punch, and I got a hose clamp on there. The rubber will squeegee off the excess spar urethane. So that's all I do is just stick it in there like that and take it back out. Look at that, it's all squeegeed off. Sit there right there to dry. I'm gonna put 2 or maybe 3 coats on there. Step is to cut the tapers for the point and knock. The point is supposed to be at 11 degrees and the knock is supposed to be at 5 degrees. I got this little taper cutting tool, and this works just like a pencil sharpener. I'm going to put on the tips. I got this glue gun for $1 at the dollar store. So the purpose of using glue gun is because if you break your arrow and you want to keep the tip, it's easy to get it off. Okay, so when you first stick these on there, don't worry about getting them on all the way. To light Mr. Candle. Heat these over a flame, and that will remelt the glue. And then take something so you don't burn your hand, and twist it and push it all the way on. What you do is put on the knocks. I use 2-ton epoxy for 2 reasons. One, because unlike the 5-minute epoxy, it gives you longer than 5 minutes working time, which causes me less stress. And 2, because it dries clear, and I have clear knocks. Reasons. You can use just about anything to put on these knocks. I think they have some special knock glue. Make sure when you put the knock on, you situate it to where when you're shooting the arrow, if it were to break, the pointy end would go up like that and not into your hand. Twist it as you put it on there. I'm going to use a Jojan Fletcher. I'm not sure. I put this little red mark on there so that I can get all the feathers are the same distance from the knock. I'm going to use this fletching tape because it's really easy to use. There. I'm going to do the cock feather first. But remember, you got to situate it to where if the arrow breaks, it'll break in such a way that it won't go into your hand. A lot of people like to use 5-inch feathers, but I got 4-inch feathers because they were cheaper. They seem to work all right. The straighter your arrow is, the less it matters how big your feathers are. Feathers are supposed to stabilize it by creating drag on the back of the arrow. So the more warped the arrows are, the bigger the feathers have to be to do their job. Just add a little bit of pressure. There we go. Turn it and put on the rest of the feathers. Then I just put a little dab of glue on the end of each feathers. That way you shoot the arrow and it goes over the arrow shelf. It won't rip the feathers off. I sometimes put a little dab on the back of it too. And that's pretty much it. Then you have an arrow and you can go shoot it.